Johnny Simmons's ship plummets through the toxic atmosphere of Konos, alarms blaring as life support systems fail. The human explorer grits his teeth, bracing for impact. With a thunderous crash, the craft slams into the alien world's surface. Smoke billows from the wreckage as Johnny forces open the airlock. He steps out, gasping involuntarily as he expects the harsh environment to kill him instantly. To his shock, he breathes normally. The air burns his nostrils, but it's breathable. Nearby, a group of Klingon scientists observe in stunned silence. Their leader, Belle, a striking female with ridged forehead and piercing eyes, stares at her scanner in disbelief. The readings indicate the atmosphere should be lethal to this alien intruder. Johnny surveys his surroundings, taking in the Deathworld's extreme conditions. The ground beneath his feet radiates intense heat, while twin suns blaze overhead in a sickly green sky. Gravity presses down on him, noticeably stronger than Earth's pull. He turns to face the Klingon group, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "Hello?" he calls out, his voice carrying easily in the dense atmosphere. The aliens exchange glances, clearly unable to understand his words. Belle steps forward, her movements cautious but intrigued. She speaks, her language a series of harsh consonants and guttural sounds. Johnny shakes his head, indicating his lack of comprehension. The female Klingon gestures to her companions. They approach, surrounding Johnny with a mix of wariness and fascination. Belle points to a device on her wrist, then to Johnny, making a motion as if to ask permission to scan him. Johnny nods, realizing he has little choice but to cooperate. As Belle runs her scanner over him, he notices her alien beauty, the strength in her posture, the intelligence in her eyes. He pushes the thought aside, focusing on his precarious situation. The Klingons confer among themselves, their tones urgent and excited. Johnny catches repeated mentions of what sounds like military and asset. His heart races as he grasps the implications. They view him as a potential weapon, a being who can survive in environments deadly to others. Belle turns to Johnny, motioning for him to follow. She points to a distant structure on the horizon, their research facility. Johnny hesitates, weighing his options. With no way off this death world and his ship in ruins, he sees no alternative but to go with them. As they begin the journey across the harsh landscape, Johnny's mind races. He needs to find a way to communicate, to assert his rights as a sentient being. More importantly, he must prevent the Klingons from exploiting his unique physiology for military purposes. The research facility looms closer, a foreboding structure of metal and stone. Johnny feels Belle's eyes on him, sensing her curiosity and perhaps something more. He pushes aside the growing attraction, focusing instead on formulating an escape plan. Upon arrival, the Klingon team quickly separates Johnny from Belle. They escort him to a secure area, their intentions clear. He is to be studied, examined, and potentially weaponized. As the door to his holding cell closes, Johnny realizes the gravity of his situation. His survival on this death world could alter the balance of power in the galaxy. He must find a way to navigate the complex social and political landscape of Kronos, all while grappling with his feelings for Belle and fighting for his freedom. The first round of tests begins, and Johnny steels himself for the challenges ahead. His journey on this alien world has only just begun, and the fate of humanity may rest on his shoulders. As the door to Johnny's holding cell closed, he braced himself for what was to come. The Klingons wasted no time in beginning their battery of tests, eager to unravel the mystery of his survival on their inhospitable world. Dr. Krell, a stern-faced Klingon with deep-set eyes and an air of ruthless efficiency, oversaw the proceedings. He barked orders in his guttural language as Johnny was strapped to an examination table. The human's heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm, knowing that panic would only make things worse. The first round of tests focused on environmental extremes. Johnny found himself subjected to blistering heat that made his skin prickle and sweat pour from every pore. Just as he thought he couldn't take any more, icy cold enveloped him, causing his teeth to chatter uncontrollably. Through it all, he endured, his body adapting to each new challenge with surprising resilience. Dr. Krell's frustration grew with each test Johnny survived. The Klingon scientist muttered to himself, scowling at the readings on his instruments. He turned to his assistants, gesturing angrily and pointing at various controls. Belle stood off to the side, her brow furrowed with concern. As Johnny was exposed to a noxious green gas that filled the chamber, she stepped forward, speaking rapidly to Dr. Krell. Their exchange was heated, with Belle gesturing emphatically towards Johnny. The human's vision swam as the gas filled his lungs, but to everyone's amazement, he continued to breathe normally. Dr. Krell's eyes widened, a mix of scientific curiosity and military calculation evident in his gaze. As the days wore on, Johnny's body began to show signs of strain. An angry red rash spread across his skin, itching fiercely. Waves of dizziness assailed him, and his stomach roiled with nausea. Yet he remained alive and largely functional, a fact that seemed to both impress and unsettle his Klingon captors. During a brief respite from the grueling experiments, Johnny found himself alone with Belle. Her eyes met his, filled with a mix of fascination and something deeper, more personal. Johnny seized the opportunity, gesturing to himself and then to the door, miming the act of leaving. Belle's expression softened, understanding dawning in her eyes. She glanced around furtively, then began to speak slowly, pointing to objects in the room and naming them in her language. Johnny listened intently, his quick mind grasping at this lifeline of communication. Their clandestine language lessons continued over the following days, disguised as part of Belle's research. Johnny's understanding of Klingon grew rapidly, allowing him to glean valuable information about the facility and the world beyond its walls. However, their growing connection did not go unnoticed. Dr. Krell watched their interactions with mounting suspicion, his eyes narrowing each time Belle approached Johnny's cell. Finally, he intervened, ordering Belle to limit her contact with the human subject. The arrival of Vorcha, a burly Klingon military officer with a perpetual scowl, marked a turning point in Johnny's captivity. Security measures tightened, with additional guards posted and new, more sophisticated locks installed on the laboratory doors. Despite these setbacks, Johnny refused to give up hope. He observed the facility's routines, noting the shift changes and the layout of the corridors. Each scrap of information was carefully filed away, forming the foundation of a daring escape plan. As Johnny's resilience continued to astound and alarm his captors, word of his unique abilities spread beyond the confines of the research facility. In the halls of power on Kronos, Counselor Kompek leaned forward in his ornate chair, listening intently to Dr. Krell's report. The counselor's eyes gleamed with the prospect of a new weapon in the Klingon arsenal. "Accelerate your research," Kompek commanded, his voice resonating with authority. "I want a full report on how we can weaponize this human's traits. The Empire must have this advantage." Back in the facility, tension mounted as Dr. Krell pushed for increasingly extreme tests. During one particularly harrowing experiment, Johnny found himself exposed to a potent neurotoxin. As the greenish vapor filled the chamber, he steeled himself for the worst. To everyone's shock, including Johnny's, his body began to adapt. The toxin that should have spelled his doom was instead metabolized, rendered harmless by his extraordinary physiology. Dr. Krell's face contorted with a mix of scientific awe and growing fear. Belle, watching from behind a protective barrier, felt her heart race. She knew that this development would only intensify the Klingons' desire to exploit Johnny's abilities. With a sense of urgency, she slipped away from the lab, making her way to a secluded communication terminal. Her fingers flew over the controls as she composed a coded message to her old friend, Lursa. The female Klingon smuggler was known for her disdain for authority and her talent for making people disappear. If anyone could help Johnny escape, it was her. As Belle sent the message, alarms blared throughout the facility. Counselor Kompek's ship had entered orbit, and he would soon arrive to personally assess the human specimen. Time was running out. Johnny, unaware of the political storm brewing around him, continued to refine his own escape plans. His improved grasp of the Klingon language allowed him to eavesdrop on his guards, piecing together crucial information about the facility's vulnerabilities. As preparations for Kompek's arrival reached a fever pitch, Johnny knew his window of opportunity was rapidly closing. He would have to act soon, or risk becoming a pawn in the Klingon Empire's grand military ambitions. With drive etched on his features, he began to put his plan into motion, knowing that his next move could mean the difference between freedom and a lifetime of captivity. As Johnny steeled himself for his next move, Dr. Krell burst into the room, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of scientific fervor and hardly restrained anxiety. "Prepare the corrosive atmospheric chamber," he barked at his assistants. "We must push the humans' limits further before Counselor Kumpek arrives." Johnny's heart raced as he was strapped onto a cold metal table and wheeled into a hermetically sealed chamber. The acrid smell of chemicals assaulted his nostrils as a greenish mist began to fill the air around him. He focused his mind, bracing for the burning sensation he expected to engulf his body. To everyone's shock, including Johnny's, his skin began to change. A thin, transparent layer formed over his epidermis, neutralizing the corrosive compounds on contact. Dr. Krell's eyes widened, and he pressed his face against the observation window, scribbling furiously on his datapad. "Impossible," he muttered, his voice a mix of awe and frustration. "The human's adaptation rate is unprecedented." Belle, watching from a corner of the lab, felt her chest tighten with concern. She knew this new development would only intensify the Klingons' desire to weaponize Johnny's abilities. With a quick glance to ensure no one was watching, she slipped out of the room and made her way to a secluded communication terminal. Her fingers flew over the controls as she composed a coded message to her old friend Lursa. "Extraction needed immediately," she typed, her heart pounding. "High-value asset, extreme risk. Respond ASAP." As Bell sent the message, alarms blared throughout the facility. Counselor Kumpek's ship had entered orbit, and he would soon arrive to personally assess the human specimen. Time was running out. Johnny, unaware of Bell's actions, focused on his surroundings as he was wheeled back to his holding cell. His improved grasp of the Klingon language allowed him to catch snippets of conversation between Dr. Krell and Vorcha, the imposing military officer who had recently arrived. "Once Kumpek approves, we move him to the military complex," Vorcha growled. "No more delays." Johnny's blood ran cold. He knew he had to act fast. As a guard approached to administer his daily nutrients, Johnny seized his chance. He doubled over, clutching his stomach and retching violently. The guard, caught off guard, moved closer to check on him. In a flash, Johnny sprang into action. He grabbed the guard's arm, using the Klingon's own weight to throw him off balance. A quick strike to the solar plexus left the guard gasping for air. Johnny snatched the fallen guard's weapon and sprinted out of the cell. Alarms blared as Johnny navigated the maze-like corridors of the facility, his mind racing to recall the layout he had carefully memorized over the past weeks. Shouts and heavy footsteps echoed behind him as Klingon security forces gave chase. Rounding a corner, Johnny found himself face to face with Vorcha in a squad of armed guards. He skidded to a halt, his eyes darting around for an escape route. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out, "Johnny, duck!" Without hesitation, he dropped to the floor as a stun blast whizzed over his head, striking Vorcha square in the chest. The Klingon officer crumpled to the ground, his team momentarily stunned by the unexpected attack. Belle emerged from behind a storage container, her weapon still smoking. She grabbed Johnny's hand, pulling him to his feet. "This way," she hissed, leading him toward a hidden maintenance hatch. As they crawled through the narrow tunnels, Belle explained her plan in hushed tones. "My friend Lursa is preparing for our extraction. We need to reach the spaceport in the southern district." Johnny nodded, his pupils dilating from the sudden turn of events. "Why are you helping me?" he asked as they emerged from the tunnels into the harsh Klingon landscape. Belle's eyes met his, a mix of emotions swirling in their depths. "Because what they're doing is wrong," she replied. "And because I couldn't bear to see you suffer anymore." The toxic atmosphere burned Johnny's lungs as they sprinted across the barren terrain. To his amazement, his body quickly adjusted, the protective layer on his skin expanding to cover his respiratory system. He noticed Belle struggling with the harsh conditions and pulled her close, sharing his newfound protection. Behind them, the research facility swarmed with activity. Dr. Krell's furious voice carried on the wind as he coordinated search parties. "Find them!" he roared. "The human must not escape." As Johnny and Belle pushed on through the treacherous landscape, The distant rumble of Counselor Cumpec's ship descending from orbit served as a stark reminder of the forces aligning against them. Their journey had only just begun, and the path to freedom would be fraught with dangers they had yet to imagine. Imagine, their flight across the treacherous Klingon landscape had only been the beginning. As they approached the spaceport, Johnny's keen eyes spotted the increased security measures. Klingon warriors patrolled the perimeter, their disruptor rifles at the ready. Counselor Cumpec's arrival had clearly put the entire facility on high alert. "We'll never make it through the main entrance," Belle whispered, her breath ragged from their long trek. Lursa, her eyes narrowed in concentration, nodded in agreement. "Then we split up, improve our chances." Johnny's mind raced, processing the new information. His body, still adapting to the harsh Klingon atmosphere, tingled with an unfamiliar sensation. He looked down at his hands, watching in amazement as his skin began to darken and take on a mottled texture. "Belle, look," he said, holding out his arm. Belle's eyes widened. "Your skin, it's changing color. You're starting to look—" "Klingon," Lursa finished, a hint of admiration in her voice. Johnny focused, willing the transformation to continue. Within moments, his entire body had taken on the appearance of a Klingon, complete with ridged forehead and darker complexion. "This could work," Belle said, her scientific mind already calculating the possibilities. "Johnny, you can infiltrate the spaceport directly. Lursa and I will create a diversion at the main entrance." Lursa produced 2 sets of cargo handler uniforms from her pack. These should get us past the initial security checkpoints. As they finalized their plan, Johnny felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. His new abilities were both a blessing and a source of uncertainty. What other changes might his body undergo? With a final nod to his companions, Johnny slipped away, circling around to the back of the spaceport. His heightened senses, another recent development, allowed him to detect a faint hum of machinery. Following the sound, he discovered a maintenance hatch partially concealed behind a cluster of storage containers. As Johnny worked to open the hatch, he heard a commotion from the direction of the main entrance. Belle and Lursa had begun their diversion. Shouts and the sound of falling crates provided the perfect cover for his entry. The ventilation system was cramped and dark, but Johnny's adapted eyes quickly adjusted. He moved silently through the metal corridors, his enhanced hearing picking up snippets of conversation from the rooms below. "Cumpec wants every ship searched. Double the patrols on the lower levels? What about the incoming Rissan vessel?" Johnny paused, his attention caught by the mention of an incoming ship. He inched closer to the grate, straining to hear more. "The merchant vessel from Risa is due to dock in Bay 7 within the hour," one officer said. "Make sure it's thoroughly inspected before allowing any cargo to be offloaded." A plan began to form in Johnny's mind. He reached for the makeshift communicator Belle had given him earlier, tapping out a quick message to relay the information about the Rissan ship. As he continued through the ventilation system, Johnny became aware of a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. The air in the ducts felt charged, almost electric. He rounded a corner and found himself face to face with a shimmering energy barrier. Dr. Krell's voice drifted up from below. "The containment field is in place. If the human tries to access this section, he'll be trapped." Johnny's heart raced. He was boxed in, with no way to reach the docking bays. But as he watched, his body began to change again. His skin rippled and shifted, taking on a faint glow. Without fully understanding what was happening, Johnny reached out and touched the energy barrier. To his amazement, his hand passed through unharmed. The containment field sparked and fizzled around him, but he felt no pain. Taking a deep breath, Johnny pushed forward, his entire body sliding through the energy barrier as if it were nothing more than a curtain of water. On the other side, Johnny paused to collect himself. The implications of this new adaptation were staggering. What were the limits of his body's ability to change and adapt? And how would these abilities shape his future? Pushing these thoughts aside, Johnny focused on the task at hand. He needed to reach Docking Bay 7 and secure passage on the Rissan vessel. As he moved through the spaceport, he overheard snatches of conversation that indicated Belle and Lursa had made it inside as well. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. A voice over the intercom announced, "Attention all personnel. Counselor Cumpec has arrived. Initiate full lockdown procedures immediately." Johnny quickened his pace, knowing that time was running out. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with a Klingon security team. For a heart-stopping moment, he thought he'd been discovered, but the team rushed past him, barely sparing him a glance. His Klingon disguise was holding. As he approached Docking Bay 7, Johnny spotted Bell and Lursa engaged in intense negotiations with a short, big-eared alien he recognized as a Ferengi, the captain of the Razan vessel, no doubt. Before he could reach them, a familiar voice called out behind him, "Stop right there!" Johnny turned to see Vorcha, his disruptor aimed squarely at Johnny's chest. The Klingon officer's eyes narrowed as he took in Johnny's transformed appearance. "I don't know how you've managed this trick, human," Vorcha growled, "but it ends now." Johnny raised his hands slowly, his mind racing for a way out of this standoff. He could feel his body preparing for another adaptation, but would it be enough to save him from Vorcha's weapon? As tension crackled in the air, the spaceport suddenly plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the docking bay. In the distance, Johnny could hear the sound of Klingon warriors shouting in confusion. Bell's voice crackled over his communicator. "Johnny, we've disabled the main power grid. Get to the ship now." With Vorcha momentarily distracted by the chaos, Johnny made his move. He lunged forward, his body reacting instinctively to the threat. As Vorcha fired his disruptor, Johnny felt his skin harden and thicken. The energy blast glanced off his chest, leaving nothing more than a slight scorch mark. Vorcha's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you?" he whispered. Before Johnny could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the docking bay. Counselor Kumpek's voice boomed out, "Secure all exits. The human must not escape." Johnny backed towards the Razan vessel, where Bell and Lursa were frantically waving him on board. Vorcha stood frozen, his weapon lowered, conflict evident on his face. "Go," Vorcha said suddenly, his voice low. "I'll hold them off." Stunned by this unexpected turn, Johnny nodded gratefully and sprinted for the ship. As he reached the airlock, he heard Vorcha engaging Kumpek's forces, buying them precious seconds. The Razan vessel's engines roared to life as Johnny stumbled aboard. Bell grabbed his arm, steadying him as the ship lurched into motion. "Hang on," the Ferengi captain called out from the cockpit. "This is going to be a bumpy ride." As the ship blasted out of the docking bay, Johnny caught a final glimpse of the Klingon spaceport. Vorcha stood alone against a tide of warriors, his actions a silent testament to the complexity of honor and duty. The vessel shuddered as it broke atmosphere, Klingon warships already in hot pursuit. Johnny braced himself against a bulkhead, his body tingling with yet another transformation. As the coldness of space pressed against the hull, he felt his skin hardening further, adapting to the extreme conditions outside. Bell and Lursa watched in amazement as Johnny moved to the ship's airlock, his body now capable of withstanding the vacuum of space. He placed a hand against the cold metal, feeling the vibrations of the pursuing Klingon ships. "Where to now?" Johnny asked, turning to his companions. The Ferengi captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "First, we need to lose our Klingon friends. Then, my dear profit-making passengers, we have some terms to discuss." As the ship accelerated away from Konos, Johnny exchanged glances with Bell and Lursa. They had escaped the immediate danger, but their journey was nowhere near the end. The vastness of space stretched out before them, filled with both promise and peril. Peril and uncertainty. As they pushed deeper into uncharted space, the Razan vessel shuddered violently. Alarms blared throughout the ship, and the Ferengi captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "We've got a problem," he announced, his tone a mix of panic and frustration. "The warp drive's destabilizing. We need to drop out of warp immediately." The ship lurched as it decelerated, throwing its passengers off balance. Johnny steadied himself against a bulkhead, his newly adapted body absorbing the impact with ease. Bell stumbled into him, and he instinctively wrapped an arm around her to keep her upright. "What's happening?" Lursa demanded, her eyes scanning the ship's readouts. The Ferengi captain, Quark, emerged from the cockpit, his expression grim. "The power core is highly unstable. We're drifting in an uncharted region, and there's a planetoid nearby. We might need to land for repairs." Johnny peered out the viewport at the looming planetoid. Its surface was a swirling mass of toxic gases, with occasional flashes of lightning illuminating the turbulent atmosphere. "That doesn't look like a hospitable place to land," Belle observed, her scientific mind already analyzing the potential dangers. Quark shrugged. "We don't have much choice. The ship won't hold together much longer without repairs." As if to emphasize his point, the vessel groaned ominously. Johnny felt a tingling sensation across his skin, his body instinctively preparing for new environmental challenges. "I might be able to help," he said, an idea forming. "My body seems to adapt to extreme conditions. I could go outside and try to stabilize the power core manually." Belle's eyes widened. "Johnny, that's incredibly dangerous. The vacuum of space alone." "I can handle it," he assured her, feeling a surge of confidence in his evolving abilities. Without waiting for further objections, Johnny moved towards the airlock. He took a deep breath, focusing on the changes he could feel happening within his body. His skin hardened, forming a protective layer against the cold vacuum of space. As the airlock cycled open, Belle watched in awe as Johnny stepped out into the void without a spacesuit. His body, silhouetted against the stars, moved with fluid grace as he navigated the ship's exterior. Johnny's enhanced senses allowed him to quickly locate the malfunctioning power core. He worked swiftly, his fingers morphing to interface directly with the ship's systems. After several tense minutes, the core's erratic pulsing steadied. Returning to the airlock, Johnny found Belle waiting for him, her expression a mix of relief and amazement. "That was incredible," she breathed. Before Johnny could respond, Quark's voice came over the intercom again. "Nice work out there, but we're not out of trouble yet. The ship's still too damaged for warp speed. We'll need to land on that planetoid for more extensive repairs." As the vessel began its descent through the planetoid's toxic atmosphere, Johnny felt a new transformation coming on. His lungs adapted, allowing him to filter out the poisonous gases. He realized that he might be the only one able to safely explore the surface. The ship touched down with a jarring thud, settling on a rocky plain surrounded by strange, crystalline formations. Through the viewport, they could see the ruins of what appeared to be an ancient outpost in the distance. "I'll go check it out," Johnny volunteered. "Maybe there's something there that can help us." Belle grabbed his arm, concern evident in her eyes. "Be careful out there. We don't know what kind of dangers this place might hold." Johnny nodded, touched by her concern. As he prepared to exit the ship, he noticed Belle wincing, her face contorted in discomfort. "What's wrong?" he asked, moving closer to her. "I'm not sure," she replied, her voice strained. "Something about this place. It's affecting me." Johnny reached out instinctively, placing a hand on her shoulder. To his surprise, he felt a surge of energy flow from his body into hers. Belle gasped, her eyes widening as the discomfort visibly faded. "What did you do?" she asked, amazed. "I'm not sure," Johnny admitted, "but I think I might be able to share my adaptive abilities, at least temporarily." Their eyes met, a moment of shared understanding passing between them. Without another word, Johnny pulled Belle into an embrace, concentrating on extending his protective adaptations to her. He felt her body change subtly against his, adjusting to match his own resilience. When they separated, Belle took a deep breath, marveling at her newfound ability to withstand the planetoid's harsh atmosphere. "I can breathe," she said, wonder in her voice. "Then let's explore together," Johnny suggested, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. As they exited the ship, Lursa called out after them. "I'll monitor the long-range sensors. Something tells me we haven't seen the last of our pursuers." Johnny and Belle made their way across the barren landscape towards the alien outpost. The structures loomed before them, a mix of crumbling stone and advanced technology that had somehow withstood the test of time in the planet's corrosive atmosphere. As they entered the main building, dormant systems suddenly flickered to life. Holographic displays materialized around them, filling the air with swirling patterns of light and indecipherable alien script. "This is incredible," Belle breathed, her scientific curiosity fully engaged. "This technology is far beyond anything I've ever seen." Johnny nodded in agreement, his eyes drawn to a pulsating orb of energy at the center of the room. As he approached it, the holographic displays intensified, coalescing into a coherent image. The projection showed a small glowing artifact, a sphere that seemed to radiate pure energy. The alien script rearranged itself, transforming into recognizable language. It's some kind of database, Bell realized, scanning the information. It's talking about an artifact of immense power, hidden somewhere on this planetoid. Before they could delve deeper into the database, Lursa's panicked voice came through their communicators. "We've got incoming. Multiple ships approaching fast. Klingon warships and others I can't identify. They'll be here within the hour." Johnny and Bell exchanged a look of commitment. They needed to find this artifact quickly before their pursuers arrived. As they prepared to search deeper into the outpost, the ground beneath them trembled ominously. The planetoid's defenses, dormant for millennia, were awakening. And with them, the true nature of the artifact's power was about to be revealed. The ground shook violently, nearly knocking Johnny and Bell off their feet. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the center of the room, engulfing them both. As the light faded, Johnny felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. The artifact they had been searching for had somehow merged with him, its power now flowing through his veins. Bell stared at him in awe, noticing the faint glow emanating from his skin. "Johnny, your body would... it's changing again," she whispered. Before he could respond, Lursa's frantic voice crackled through their communicators once more. "The planetoid's energy shield is fluctuating. We need to leave now." Johnny grabbed Bell's hand, and they sprinted back towards the Reson vessel. As they ran, he could feel the artifact's power pulsing within him, responding to his thoughts and emotions. They reached the ship to find a tense standoff. Lursa stood with a disruptor aimed at Captain Quark, who was bound and gagging on the floor. "What happened?" Johnny demanded, rushing into the cockpit. Lursa's eyes narrowed. "I caught our dear captain trying to make a deal with Dr. Krell. He was going to sell us out." Bell moved to the ship's controls, her fingers flying over the panels. "We need to get out of here before the shield completely fails. Our pursuers will be on us in minutes." Johnny closed his eyes, focusing on the new energy flowing through him. He could sense the planetoid's shield, feel its fluctuations. An idea formed in his mind. "I think I can create a breach in the shield," he said, his voice filled with a newfound confidence. "But I'll need your help, Bell." She nodded, understanding immediately. Their shared adaptive traits had created a unique bond between them. As Johnny concentrated on manipulating the energy field surrounding the planetoid, Bell monitored the shield's stability, guiding his efforts with precision. The ship shuddered as Lursa fired up the engines. Outside, the swirling toxic atmosphere seemed to part as a small opening appeared in the energy barrier. "Now!" Johnny shouted. Lursa pushed the ship to its limits, aiming for the breach. As they burst through the opening, alarms blared throughout the vessel. The damaged systems groaned under the strain of their desperate escape. Johnny maintained his focus, using his newfound abilities to create a wake of disrupted energy behind the ship. The pursuing vessels, now visible on their sensors, struggled to lock onto their position. As they broke free from the planetoid's atmosphere, Johnny felt the artifact's power surge wildly within him. Random bursts of energy erupted from his body, threatening to tear the ship apart from the inside. Bell rushed to his side, placing her hands on his shoulders. Her touch seemed to soothe the chaotic energy, allowing Johnny to regain some control. "We've got company," Lursa shouted from the pilot's seat. Through the view screen, they could see a massive Klingon battlecruiser leading the charge. Smaller, unidentified ships flanked it, all converging on their position. Suddenly, a beam of energy lanced out from the Klingon vessel, striking their ship with pinpoint accuracy. The Reson vessel lurched violently, its propulsion systems failing. "We're dead in space," Lursa reported grimly. Johnny looked at Bell, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "I have an idea," he said, his voice low and determined, "but it's risky." Bell squeezed his hand. "Whatever it is, I trust you." Johnny explained his plan to use the artifact's power to create a makeshift warp field around their ship. It was dangerous, untested, and could potentially scatter them across the galaxy, or worse. Lursa, hearing the plan, shook her head in disbelief. "You're insane," she muttered. but I don't see any other options." As the enemy ships closed in, preparing to board, Johnny embraced Bell. Their connection amplified his powers, and he felt his consciousness expand to encompass the entire vessel. Energy crackled around them, building to a blinding crescendo. In a flash of brilliant light, the Ryzen vessel vanished from normal space, just as the Klingon boarding parties were about to breach their airlock. The ship hurtled through subspace at impossible speeds. Inside, reality itself seemed to bend and warp. Bell clung to Johnny, her presence anchoring him as he struggled to control the immense energies coursing through his body. Lursa worked frantically at the controls, trying to keep the ship's systems from overloading under the enormous strain. Sparks flew from consoles, and the hull groaned ominously as they tore through the fabric of spacetime. After what felt like an eternity compressed into mere seconds, they violently re-entered normal space. The ship bucked and shuddered, systems failing across the board. "Where are we?" Bell asked, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. Lursa checked the navigational systems, her eyes widening in disbelief. I don't know. These stars don't match any known configurations in our database." As the full impact of their situation sank in, a new crisis demanded their attention. The ship, pushed far beyond its limits, began to break apart around them. Johnny, his powers nearly exhausted, scanned their surroundings. Through the view screen, he spotted a planet with a breathable atmosphere. "There!" he shouted, pointing at the blue-green world. "It's our only chance." Lursa nodded grimly, setting a course for an emergency landing. As they hurtled towards the unknown planet, hull breaches widened, and the ship's integrity alarm screamed a constant warning. Johnny pulled Bell close, their bodies glowing faintly with the artifact's residual energy. He focused every ounce of his remaining strength on protecting them, praying that his adaptive abilities would be enough to ensure their survival. The planet's surface rushed up to meet them, a patchwork of forests and oceans growing larger by the second. Lursa fought with the failing controls, trying to guide their descent to a survivable angle. "Brace for impact," she yelled, as the ship plunged into the planet's atmosphere. Johnny closed his eyes, concentrating on extending his protective field around Bell and Lursa. The artifact pulsed within him, its power responding to his desperate need. As the Ryzen vessel streaked across the alien sky like a meteor, leaving a trail of debris in its wake, Johnny knew their greatest challenge was yet to come. Whatever awaited them on this unknown world, they would face it together, changed, bonded, and possessing powers they were only beginning to understand. The ship plummeted towards the surface, the roar of re-entry drowning out all other sounds. In these final moments before impact, Johnny silently vowed to unravel the mysteries of the artifact and find a way back home, despite the toll. Overwhelming forces arrayed against them. The ship's hull screamed as it tore through the atmosphere, the heat of re-entry threatening to tear them apart. At the last possible moment, Johnny's eyes snapped open, glowing with an otherworldly light. He raised his hands and a shimmering energy field erupted around the ship. The artifact's power surged through him, responding to his desperate need for survival. The energy cocoon cushioned their descent, slowing their fall as they plunged into a dense canopy of alien trees. Branches snapped and leaves exploded around them as the ship carved a path through the forest. With a final, bone-jarring impact, they crashed to the ground, the energy field dissipating in a shower of sparks. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the ship's hatch swung open. Johnny stumbled out, pulling Bell behind him. Lursa followed, dragging the bound form of Captain Quark. They found themselves in a clearing of crushed vegetation, surrounded by towering trees with iridescent leaves. The air was thick and humid, filled with unfamiliar scents and sounds. Johnny took a deep breath, his body quickly adapting to the new atmosphere. Bell followed suit, though her adjustment was noticeably slower. Lursa and Quark, however, immediately began to struggle. "I can't breathe," Lursa gasped, leaning against the ship's hull for support. Bell rushed to her side, her scientific mind already analyzing the situation. "The atmosphere must have a different composition than what we're used to. Johnny, can you help them?" Johnny nodded, reaching out to touch Lursa's shoulder. He concentrated, willing his adaptive abilities to flow into her. Lursa's breathing eased, and color returned to her face. He repeated the process with Quark, despite the captain's muffled protests. As Johnny stepped back, he felt a surge of energy course through his body. The artifact pulsed within him, reacting to something in their new environment. Suddenly, a burst of energy erupted from his hands, causing nearby plants to grow and twist at an alarming rate. "What's happening?" Belle asked, her eyes wide with a mixture of fascination and concern. Johnny stared at his hands in disbelief. "I don't know. It's like the artifact is responding to something here. I can't control it." Lursa, now recovered, scanned their surroundings. "We need to find water and shelter. This ship won't protect us for long." As they ventured into the alien forest, Johnny's fluctuating powers continued to affect their environment. Vines grew and retracted as they passed, while flowers bloomed and wilted in a matter of seconds. The group moved cautiously, wary of any potential dangers this strange world might hold. They hadn't gone far when Belle spotted a structure through the trees. "Look, it's some kind of ruins." The ancient building bore a striking resemblance to the outpost they had encountered on the previous planetoid. As they approached, Johnny felt the artifact pulse more strongly. The ruins came to life, holographic displays flickering into existence. Belle studied the projections with growing excitement. "These are star charts. And look, there are markers for other outposts. It's a network spread across the galaxy." Their exploration was cut short as darkness fell with surprising speed. The forest around them came alive with bioluminescent life, bathing everything in an ethereal glow. Mesmerized by the beauty, Johnny found himself drawn to Belle. Their eyes met, and in that moment, all the tension and fear of their ordeal melted away. Johnny pulled Belle close, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. The artifact's energy surged between them, creating a dazzling display of light that danced around their entwined forms. Their intimate moment was shattered by a violent tremor that shook the ground. A deafening roar filled the air as the earth split open, revealing a massive, worm-like creature. Its segmented body writhed as it pulled itself from the ground, easily dwarfing their crashed ship. "Run!" Lursa shouted, already sprinting away from the monstrous beast. As they fled through the luminous forest, Johnny tried to use his powers to slow the creature's advance. Bursts of energy shot from his hands, alternately causing the beast to recoil in pain or surge forward with renewed vigor. "I can't control it," Johnny yelled, frustration evident in his voice. In the chaos of their flight, none of them noticed Captain Quark slip his bonds and disappear into the underbrush. A piece of the ship's technology clutched in his hands. The group's desperate run led them to a hidden entrance in the forest floor. Without hesitation, they plunged into the darkness, the sound of the worm's pursuit echoing behind them. They found themselves in a vast network of tunnels, the walls adorned with the same technology they had seen in the ruins above. As they ventured deeper, strange, eyeless creatures skittered away from their approach. "We need to find a way out of here," Lursa said, her voice tight with tension. "We're sitting ducks in these tunnels." As if in response to her words, they emerged into a large chamber. At its center stood a device that pulsed with the same energy as Johnny's artifact. Belle approached it cautiously. "This might be our way out. If we can stabilize your powers, Johnny, we might be able to use it to contact help or even leave the planet." Johnny stepped towards the device, hope rising in his chest. But as he drew near, both the artifact and the device began to react violently. Energy arced between them, growing more intense with each passing second. "No, wait!" Belle's warning came too late. A massive surge of power erupted from both sources, causing the chamber to shake violently. Cracks appeared in the walls and ceiling, chunks of rock beginning to fall around them. "The tunnels are collapsing!" Lursa shouted over the din. "We need to get out of here now!" As they turned to flee, the realization of their predicament hit them. Trapped between the collapsing tunnels and the giant worm above, their options were rapidly dwindling. Johnny looked at Belle, tenacity etched on his face. "We're going to make it out of this," he said, gripping her hand tightly. "Together." With the tunnels crumbling around them and unknown dangers lurking both above and below, Johnny, Belle, and Lursa raced against time. Their survival would depend on Johnny mastering his unpredictable powers, and unraveling the secrets of the artifact before it was too late. The cavern shook violently, sending cascades of dust and debris raining down on Johnny, Belle, and Lursa. They pressed forward, their path illuminated by the eerie glow of Johnny's fluctuating powers. "This way!" Belle shouted, pointing to a narrow passage that seemed more stable than the others. As they sprinted through the collapsing tunnels, Johnny's artifact pulsed erratically. Suddenly, a wave of energy burst from his hands, causing the gravity around them to shift wildly. They found themselves momentarily floating, then crashing back to the ground with bone-jarring force. "I can't control it," Johnny grunted, his face contorted with effort. Lursa stumbled, gasping for air. "We need to find a way out. Fast!" Just as hope seemed lost, Belle's keen eyes spotted an anomaly in the tunnel wall. "Look, there's some kind of panel here." She rushed to it, her fingers flying over the alien symbols. The artifact in Johnny's chest resonated with the panel, and suddenly, a section of the wall slid open, revealing a smooth, cylindrical tube. "It's a transport system," Belle exclaimed. "Quick, get in!" They dove into the tube just as the tunnel behind them collapsed. With a whoosh of compressed air, they were propelled through a maze of underground passages. Johnny's powers flared, creating a protective bubble around them as they hurtled through the network at breakneck speed. The ride ended abruptly, depositing them in a vast cavern that took their breath away. Bioluminescent plants pulsed with soft light, casting shifting shadows on the rocky walls. Strange, translucent creatures flitted through the air, their bodies glowing with internal light. At the center of the cavern stood a massive structure, a blend of organic matter and advanced technology. As they approached, tendrils of energy reached out from the structure, intertwining with the pulsing light from Johnny's artifact. Belle's eyes widened with excitement. This must be the core of the planet's defense system. If we can interface with it, we might be able to stabilize your powers and call for help. As they ventured closer, they encountered bizarre life forms that seemed to be part of the structure itself. Gelatinous creatures oozed across their path, while crystalline entities hovered nearby, observing them with faceted eyes. Johnny reached out to touch one of the crystal beings, and a jolt of energy passed between them. He gasped as information flooded his mind, glimpses of an ancient civilization, their advanced technology, and the purpose of this planetary network. "It's overwhelming," he murmured, swaying on his feet. Belle grabbed his arm to steady him. "What did you see?" Before Johnny could respond, the cavern trembled violently. The giant worm creature was still pursuing them, its movements threatening to bring the entire underground system crashing down. "We need to act fast," Lursa urged, her breathing labored in the alien atmosphere. They pressed on, navigating through a maze of pulsing organic circuitry. Belle's scientific expertise proved invaluable as she deciphered the alien logic of the system. "Here," she said, pointing to a central hub. "This looks like the main control interface." Johnny stepped forward, the artifact in his chest glowing brightly. As he placed his hands on the control surface, energy surged through him. His eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as he connected with the planet's ancient systems. Belle watched in awe as Johnny's body became a conduit for the immense energies flowing through the structure. But she could see the strain it was putting on him. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around him. Their bodies pressed close. The connection between them intensified, and Belle felt a fraction of the power coursing through Johnny. "I'm here," she whispered. "We're in this together." Their combined efforts stabilized the energy flow. The cavern hummed with power as dormant systems came to life. A shimmering field of energy expanded outward, enveloping the entire planet. The tremors from the giant worm creature ceased abruptly as the shield repelled it. But the activation of the planetary defense system had an unexpected consequence. A massive pulse of energy shot into space, broadcasting their location across the stars. As the initial surge subsided, the structure began to reconfigure itself. A hidden chamber opened, revealing a row of stasis pods. "Lursa, quick!" Belle called out. "These might help you adapt to the planet's atmosphere." They guided the weakening Klingon into one of the pods. As it sealed shut, a soft glow enveloped Lursa's body, beginning the process of altering her physiology to survive in this alien environment. With Lursa safely in stasis, Johnny and Belle turned their attention to a holographic display that had materialized nearby. It showed a vast network of similar outposts spread across the galaxy. "This is incredible," Belle breathed. "These outposts could revolutionize interstellar travel." Their wonder was short-lived as alarms began to blare throughout the structure. The sensors had detected multiple ships entering orbit around the planet. The energy pulse, Johnny realized. It must have attracted attention. They watched in growing alarm as the display showed a mixed fleet of vessels approaching. Klingon warbirds, unknown alien craft, and a few ships that might be potential allies. As they grappled with this new threat, a crackling transmission cut through the alien facility's communication systems. A familiar voice filled the chamber. "Well, well," Captain Quark's smug tone rang out. "It seems you've stumbled onto quite the discovery. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement that benefits us both?" Johnny and Belle exchanged glances, weighing their limited options. With hostile forces closing in, an unconscious ally, and a conniving Ferengi offering dubious help, they faced a crucial decision that could alter the fate of not just their small group, but potentially the entire galaxy. Galaxy. Johnny and Belle exchanged a determined look, their minds racing to process the rapidly unfolding situation. Suddenly, the ancient structure shuddered, and a low hum filled the air. The central core of the facility began to pulse with an otherworldly light, its rhythm perfectly matching the beats of Johnny's artifact. As the energy built, Johnny gasped, feeling a surge of power course through his body. "Belle," he said, his voice tight with concentration. "Something's happening. The artifact, it's changing me." Belle watched in awe as tendrils of energy danced across Johnny's skin. His eyes glowed with an inner light, and she could see the struggle on his face as he fought to control the newfound power. "I can feel it," Johnny continued, his hands moving instinctively over the alien control panels. "It's like I can understand the technology now, see how it all fits together." As Johnny's connection with the artifact deepened, the structure's defenses sprang to life. Shimmering energy barriers materialized around them, creating a protective cocoon that shielded them from the chaos outside. Belle's scientific mind raced to keep up with the implications. "Johnny, if you can control the facility's systems, maybe we can find a way out of here." Their moment of hope was interrupted by a familiar hiss. They turned to see the stasis pod opening, Lursa emerging with a look of confusion on her face. What happened?" the Klingon asked, her voice raspy. Belle rushed to Lursa's side, quickly explaining the situation. As she spoke, she noticed something different about their companion. Lursa's skin had taken on a subtle iridescence, and her breathing seemed easier despite the alien atmosphere. "The pod must have adapted your physiology," Belle realized. "You might be able to survive in environments that would be lethal to us now." Before they could fully process this development, alarms blared throughout the facility. Johnny's hands flew over the controls, bringing up a holographic display of the space above the planet. "We've got company," he announced grimly. "Multiple ships entering orbit. Looks like Counselor Compek's fleet, but there are others too. They're engaging each other." The group watched as the orbital battle unfolded, streaks of weapons fire crisscrossing the display. The conflict above provided an unintentional distraction, buying them precious time. A crackle of static cut through the air, and Captain Quark's voice filled the chamber once more. "I hope you've had time to consider my offer," the Ferengi said, his tone dripping with false concern. "Because things are about to get very interesting up here." Johnny's eyes narrowed as he scanned the facility's systems. "He's inside," he muttered. "Somehow, he's made it into the lower levels." Belle's mind raced, weighing their options. "We can't trust him, but we might need his help. The Ferengi have connections throughout the quadrant." Their deliberations were cut short by a violent tremor that shook the entire structure. Johnny's fingers danced over the controls, bringing up a new display. "That worm creature," he said, his voice tight. "It's burrowing towards us. If it reaches the facility's power core..." He didn't need to finish the thought. They all understood the catastrophic implications. "We need to move," Lursa growled, her warrior instincts kicking in. "What are our options?" Johnny's eyes lit up as he accessed a new section of the facility's database. "There's a teleportation system," he explained quickly. It's connected to a network of similar outposts across the galaxy. We could use it to escape. Bell frowned, studying the readouts over Johnny's shoulder. The energy requirements are massive, she pointed out. We'd need a power source as strong as the artifact itself. Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. Using the teleporter could mean separating Johnny from the artifact that had become a part of him. The risks were enormous. There might be another way, Bell said, her scientific mind working overtime. If we can boost the facility's communication array, we could send out a targeted distress signal. Call for help. As they debated their options, a new alert flashed across the display. An unidentified ship had entered the system, its design unlike anything they'd seen before. Wait, Bell said, leaning in for a closer look. Those energy signatures? They're similar to Earth vessels. It must be a long-range exploration ship. The arrival of a potential ally added a new dimension to their predicament. Escape routes that had seemed impossible now appeared within reach. But with the hostile forces above, the approaching worm creature below, and the unstable power of the artifact, every choice carried enormous risk. Johnny closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of the artifact in his chest. When he opened them again, he found Bell watching him intently. In that moment, a wordless understanding passed between them. Together, they began to formulate a plan that would test the limits of Johnny's newfound abilities and their trust in each other. As alarms blared and energy surged through the ancient structure, Johnny and Bell stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The fate of not just their small group, but potentially the entire sector, hung in the balance. With resolute drive, they prepared to set their daring plan in motion. Motion. Johnny's eyes lit up with sudden clarity, his mind racing as the pieces fell into place. "I've got it," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "We can use everything at our disposal to get out of here." Bell turned to him, her expression a mix of curiosity and drive. "What's the plan?" Johnny's hands moved swiftly over the alien controls, his connection to the artifact guiding his actions. "We're going to create a massive energy surge. It'll power up the teleportation system, send out a distress signal to that Earthship, and shield us from both the worm and the ships above." As Johnny spoke, the structure around them hummed with increasing power. The artifact in his chest pulsed in sync with the facility's core, streams of energy flowing between them. Bell quickly caught on, her scientific mind already working out the details. "We'll need to protect ourselves from the energy surge. The stasis pod, we can modify it." Without wasting a moment, Bell rushed to the pod that had transformed Lursa. Her fingers flew over its controls, reprogramming its functions. "This should shield us during teleportation," she explained. Lursa, now fully alert, nodded in approval. "A bold plan, worthy of a warrior." Captain Quark's voice crackled through the communication system once more. "Whatever you're planning, I suggest you do it quickly. Things are getting rather heated up here." Johnny's connection to the facility deepened, his consciousness expanding to encompass its vast network of systems. With a thought, he created a localized wormhole within the teleportation chamber, linking their location to the Earthship in orbit. "Everyone, into the pod!" Johnny called out, his voice strained from the effort of maintaining control. As the group scrambled into the modified stasis pod, the chamber shook violently. The giant worm creature had breached the outer walls, its massive form visible through the cracks, spreading across the structure. Johnny's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as he initiated the teleportation sequence. Energy surged through the chamber, enveloping them in a brilliant flash. For a moment, reality seemed to twist and blur around them. Then, with a disorienting lurch, they materialized in a new location. The sleek, modern interior of a starship greeted their eyes as the group stumbled out of the pod. Alarms blared throughout the ship, and a voice called out over the intercom, "Intruder alert! Security to the cargo bay!" Before anyone could react, a team of armed officers burst into the room, their weapons trained on the unexpected arrivals. "Stand down!" a commanding voice ordered. A man in a captain's uniform strode into the cargo bay, his expression a mix of curiosity and caution. "I'm Captain Marcus Chen of the ESS Horizon. Identify yourselves." Johnny stepped forward, the artifact in his chest still glowing faintly. "I'm Johnny, and these are my companions. We've just escaped from a planet under attack. We sent out a distress signal." Captain Chen's eyes widened in recognition. "The signal? That was you. We picked it up just moments ago." Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. An officer's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, the planet's surface is destabilizing. Massive energy readings off the charts." Chen turned to his crew. "Get us out of here. Maximum safe distance." As the horizon moved away from the planet, Johnny felt a strange sensation. The artifact in his chest seemed to pulse in harmony with the ship's systems. Without fully understanding how, he reached out with his mind, connecting to the horizon's technology. Belle watched in amazement as Johnny's eyes glowed once more. "Captain," she said urgently, "Johnny's interfacing with your ship. I think he can help." Chen hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Do what you can," he told Johnny. With Johnny's enhanced abilities integrated into the ship's systems, the Horizon's capabilities surged. A protective energy bubble formed around the vessel, just as a massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the collapsing planet. The view screen showed a spectacular light show as the pulse disabled many of the ships in orbit. Klingon warbirds and unknown alien vessels alike drifted powerless in space. "Incredible," Chen breathed, watching the display. Then, snapping back to action, he ordered, "Prepare for emergency FTL jump. We need to get out of this system before the disabled ships recover." As the crew rushed to comply, Belle worked alongside the ship's science officer, her fingers flying over the console. "We need to stabilize Johnny's connection," she explained. "The integration between the artifact, Johnny, and the ship's systems is highly unstable." The science officer nodded, quickly grasping the situation. Together they worked to create a stable interface, their efforts resulting in a symbiotic link that not only maintained Johnny's abilities, but also significantly enhanced the Horizon's performance. "FTL jump in 3, 2, 1, the helm officer called out. The stars on the monitor elongated into streaks of light as the Horizon leapt into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind the chaos of the alien planet. As the initial crisis passed, Captain Chen turned to address the diverse group now gathered on his bridge. Johnny and Belle stood close together, their shared experiences having forged a deep bond. Lursa, her skin still shimmering with its new iridescence, stood alert and ready for action. Captain Quark, looking somewhat out of place among the others, glanced around with a mix of wariness and calculation in his eyes. "I think," Chen said, his voice grave, "we all have a lot to discuss. If you'll join me in the conference room, we need to plan our next move. Something tells me our troubles are a long way to go." As they filed out of the bridge following Captain Chen, the long-range sensors of the Horizon lit up with multiple signals. The display showed a growing number of ships from various factions, including Counselor Kumpek's Klingon fleet, all converging on their last known location. The hunt had begun, and the Horizon, with its extraordinary passengers and newly enhanced systems, raced into the unknown reaches of space, carrying with it secrets that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Galaxy. The newly enhanced Horizon cut through space at unprecedented speeds, its systems humming with the power of Johnny's artifact and the alien technology they had hastily integrated. Captain Chen stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the long-range sensor display. "We need to find a safe harbor," he said, his voice tight with tension. "Somewhere to regroup and assess our situation." As if in response to his words, the ship's sensors lit up with a new reading. Belle leaned in, her eyes widening as she interpreted the data. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive structure hidden within an asteroid field, approximately 2 light-years from our current position." Chen raised an eyebrow. "A structure? Out here in the middle of nowhere?" Johnny, who had been quietly monitoring the ship's systems through his newfound connection, suddenly straightened. "It's more than just a structure," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "It's calling to me." Belle turned to him, concern etched on her face. "Johnny, what do you mean?" Before he could respond, the ship's sensors updated, revealing more details about the hidden object. "It's a space station," Belle announced, her fingers flying over the console. "And it's massive. The asteroid field must have been hiding it from long-range scans. Chen considered their options for a moment before making a decision. Set a course for the station. We need resources and a place to catch our breath. This might be our best chance. As the horizon approached the asteroid field, the station's advanced cloaking technology deactivated, revealing its true size and complexity. The crew gasped as the structure came into view on the main screen, a sprawling, multi-leveled behemoth that dwarfed their ship. Johnny's eyes glowed faintly as he felt the artifact in his chest pulse in response to the station's presence. Without fully understanding how, he reached out with his mind, interfacing with the station's systems. "There's a concealed hangar bay," he said, his voice distant. "I can guide us in." Chen nodded, trusting in Johnny's abilities. "Do it." With Johnny's guidance, the horizon glided smoothly into the hidden bay, settling onto the deck with a gentle thud. As the ship powered down, an eerie silence fell over the crew. "What is this place?" Lursa asked, her warrior's instincts on high alert. Belle, already analyzing the data streaming in from their sensors, shook her head in wonder. "It's ancient. The technology, it's beyond anything I've ever seen, and it appears to be completely automated." "No life signs?" Chen asked. "None," Belle confirmed, "but the station's systems are coming online. It's almost as if it was waiting for us," Johnny finished, his eyes meeting Belle's. Chen squared his shoulders, making a quick decision. "All right, we need to explore this place. Johnny, Belle, I want you two to investigate the station's main systems. See if you can access any information about its purpose and creators. Lursa, Quark, search for any useful technology or resources we can use. The rest of the crew will secure the horizon and prepare for a quick departure if necessary." As the team disembarked, Johnny felt a growing connection to the station. Each step seemed to resonate with the artifact, guiding him deeper into the structure's heart. Belle kept close to his side, her scientific curiosity warring with her concern for Johnny's well-being. They soon found themselves in a vast chamber, its walls lined with shimmering data crystals. "It's a library," Belle breathed, her eyes wide with excitement. "The knowledge stored here, it could revolutionize our understanding of the universe." Johnny nodded, feeling the weight of the information surrounding them. He reached out, both physically and mentally, to interface with the library's systems. As he connected, a flood of information poured into his mind. Glimpses of an ancient civilization, their technological marvels, and the reasons for their disappearance. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. The chamber's lights pulsed red as a computerized voice echoed through the halls. "Security protocol activated. Countdown sequence initiated." Belle grabbed Johnny's arm, panic in her voice. "What did you do?" Johnny shook his head, struggling to process the overwhelming influx of information. I don't know, but we need to warn the others. The station is powering up its main systems. Every ship in the sector will be able to detect that energy signature." As they raced back towards the hangar bay, Johnny's connection to the artifact intensified. Visions of the ancient civilization's history flooded his mind, each more vivid than the last. The strain became too much, and he collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing as the artifact's energy surged through him. "Johnny!" Belle cried out, kneeling beside him. She quickly assessed his condition, her scientific mind racing to understand what was happening. With growing horror, she realized that the artifact was no longer just an external object. It was merging with Johnny's biology, transforming him into something beyond human. As Belle worked frantically to stabilize Johnny's condition, the station around them continued to awaken. In the distance, they could hear the sound of machinery coming to life and the ominous approach of something mechanical. The race against time had begun, with Johnny's fate and the secrets of the ancient station hanging in the balance. The station's awakening had triggered a cascade of events that threatened to overwhelm them all. Belle helped Johnny to his feet, supporting him as they stumbled towards the hangar bay. The mechanical sounds grew louder, echoing through the vast corridors of the station. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with Lursa and Quark, who were running in the opposite direction. "We need to get back to the ship," Lursa growled, her warrior instincts on high alert. "This place is coming alive, and I don't think it's happy to see us." Quark nodded frantically, his eyes wide with fear. I've seen some impressively valuable technology, but right now I'd trade it all for a safe way out of here. Together, the group raced back to the horizon, the station trembling around them as more systems activated. They burst into the hangar bay just as Captain Chen was organizing the crew for departure. "Everyone on board now," Chen ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. As they scrambled onto the ship, Johnny's connection to the artifact intensified. He gasped, gripping the railing as a flood of information poured into his mind. "Wait," he called out, his voice strained. "There's something we need to see." Bell looked at him with concern. "Johnny, we don't have time. We need to leave." But Johnny shook his head, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Trust me," he said, his voice resonating with newfound power. "Set a course for these coordinates." He projected a set of numbers directly into the ship's navigation system, bypassing the usual input methods. Captain Chen hesitated for a moment, then nodded to his helmsman. "Do it," he commanded. The horizon lifted off, its enhanced systems allowing it to navigate the treacherous asteroid field with ease. As they emerged from the field, the ship's sensors detected a massive anomaly directly ahead. "What is that?" Chen asked, staring at the swirling vortex of energy that had appeared before them. Johnny stepped forward, his body now pulsing with the same energy that emanated from the anomaly. "It's a gate," he explained, his voice filled with awe. "A gateway created by the same civilization that built the artifact in the station." As they approached the gate, it activated fully, its swirling energies intensifying. Johnny felt an irresistible pull towards it, as if every cell in his body was being drawn to its center. "We need to go through," Johnny said with certainty. "This is what we've been meant to find all along." Captain Chen looked at his crew, then back at Johnny. The dedication in the young man's eyes was unmistakable. Chen nodded, making his decision. "Take us in," he ordered. The horizon plunged into the swirling vortex, its hull shimmering with protective energy as it passed through the gate. The crew held on tight as reality itself seemed to bend and twist around them. In an instant that felt like an eternity, they emerged on the other side. Gasps of amazement filled the bridge as they beheld the sight before them. A vast, lush world spread out beneath them, its surface dotted with gleaming cities that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural environment. Ships of incredible design flitted through the atmosphere, their movements graceful and purposeful. "Where are we?" Belle whispered, her scientific mind racing to comprehend what she was seeing. Johnny's eyes glowed as he accessed the knowledge flowing through him. "It's a pocket dimension," he explained. "A sanctuary created by the last survivors of an ancient civilization. They fled here eons ago to escape a great calamity." As if in response to their arrival, a transmission came through the ship's communication systems. A holographic image appeared on the bridge, showing a group of beings that looked almost human, but with an ethereal quality that spoke of advanced evolution. "Welcome, travelers," the lead figure said, its voice resonating with warmth and wisdom. "We have been waiting for you for a very long time." Captain Chen stepped forward, his bearing respectful but cautious. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the ESS Horizon. We come in peace and seek understanding." The being nodded, a smile playing on its lips. "We know who you are, Captain, and we know why you're here." Its gaze turned to Johnny, who stood transfixed by the hologram. "Especially you, Johnny. You have passed the trials and proven yourself worthy. It is time for you to learn of your true destiny." Johnny felt a surge of energy within him, the artifact in his chest pulsing with renewed intensity. He realized that everything he had experienced, from his initial encounter with the artifact to their journey through space, had been leading to this moment. The being extended its hand, the gesture transcending the limitations of the hologram. "Come," it said. "There is much to discuss, and time is of the essence. The threat that our ancestors fled from is returning, and you, Johnny, may be the key to saving not just your galaxy, but all of existence." As the crew of the Horizon prepared to disembark, Johnny felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He looked at Belle, seeing the same emotions reflected in her eyes. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The Horizon began its descent towards the surface of this new world, carrying with it a crew that had already witnessed wonders beyond imagination. Yet as they approached the gleaming cities below, they all sensed that their greatest adventure was only just beginning.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.